Hello, my name is Ludmila. I'm co-founder and CTO of the Beat company. And today I have a very interesting guest, Elmo. He has spent the last decade or even more helping companies improve their way of working through the CMMI framework and the MDDAP program. Elmo, welcome. It's
Hi, how
great
are
to
you?
have you here. Good.
Pleasure to
And
be here with you, and thanks for inviting me.
yeah, I'm really glad that we have this conversation. Let's start from the beginning to your introduction to the CMMI, because like it was already a stable company, if I understand wrong, if I understand right. And what was the trigger that you understand that changes are needed, and why you decide to go with CMMI specifically?
Okay, so I was introduced to CMMI back in like 2009 as a practitioner implementing the framework, and later on progressed to becoming a lead appraiser. I'm also an MDAP team member. But I think the main focus there was at the time that we encountered multiple issues across our development life cycle. So we needed an holistic approach to address these interconnected challenges within the organization. So many organizations realize they need CMMI when they face project execution failures, inconsistencies in quality assurance, delays, high defect rates, all those things that development companies normally are faced with, and indicators that structured process improvement is necessary. And the CMMI framework and the model at the time provided us with exactly that.
Um, okay, do you think that it makes sense to company to start it early? Because if I'm not wrong, you already had like 300 developers, yeah? So
Uh,
uh,
yes.
uh, does it make sense to start implementing it when you already have a team, when you already have some process, some experience, or the earlier you start doing it, the better will be the result, or maybe you will not face some issues?
Yes, so we have to realize that no matter what company you have,
Uh-huh.
within your company, there are some processes, either written or unwritten. People
Yeah.
follow a process. And the challenges that companies face is when these processes actually don't work. So you can use the model at any time to try and apply the practices to your existing processes and fix the gaps, identify the pain points, and address the issues and the outcomes by using the model. So you can use it at any time. You don't have to apply the entire model. You can apply it in specific pieces of your organization, and it will grow because all of these things are interconnected. Once you start fixing issues in one place, it will roll over to fixing issues in another area.
Okay. And now when you switch into like medical device companies, does there like any big difference or the structure is the same, only the domain is different?
Yes, so the medical device industry, together with the FDA,
Hmm.
adopted the CMMI model,
Hmm.
and elements of the CMMI model as a start, and it's a voluntary improvement program. They call it VIP, Case for Quality. So the MDAP is the device discovery appraisal program, which medical device companies can subscribe to. They use the CMMI model. The CMMI model has different components. They've got practice areas and practices within the practice area. And there are also three different appraisal methods that you can apply.
Hmm.
So for the MDAP program, as a benchmark or as a stake in the ground, if you want to call it that, medical companies can then use 11 of the core CMMI areas that have been identified that the medical companies can use, but it doesn't stop there. It's a multi-year process. So as the years progress, the more practice areas you can add, identifying issues within the medical device organizations, you can apply different areas of the CMMI model. And then speaking about three different appraisal methods that's used, you can either have a benchmark or a sustainment or an evaluation appraisal. So most companies who want certification would use a benchmark or sustainment, which is just a reassessment. But the medical device approach uses the evaluation appraisal method. So there's no certification. It's more of a gap analysis. So this is identifying pain points across the company, even with medical device companies that have their QMS systems in place. This will address a broader part of your organization and not just a specific area.
So from what I hear, CMMI model is not a standard now in the medical device industry. So when this MDDAP program appear, like companies start to understand, okay, this framework exists and we can follow it. Am I understanding you right?
Yes,
So,
correct.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, and you mentioned that most company came just for me to understand for benchmark, yeah, to understand that they're on the right level. So what usually is the purpose or why they want to apply for MDAP and what the benefits of CMMI in this case for
Okay,
them?
so the primary difference lies in the focus and objectives of an appraisal. So the MDAP focuses on the regulatory compliance and continuous improvement rather than achieving a specific maturity or capability level. So the certification of CMMI you can either focus on your maturity level or you can focus on capability level. That's two different areas. Certification. So typically, software companies historically would apply or use CMMI to assess and enhance their capability and maturity levels for better process efficiency and business outcomes. Where on the MDAP side and the medical side, it aligns with the FDA's case for quality. So that has got a more emphasis on risk management, patient safety, and compliance, whereas the CMMI firms focuses on the internal processes, the life cycles, and also to improve their efficiencies.
Okay, and am I understand right that if company join MDDAP, they do not need FDA inspection? So it's or it's like both should be done?
No, so there are some benefits of a medical device company joining the VIP program. There is a reduction in the FDA routine inspections. There's also guidance for continuous process improvement because, as I said, it's a multi-year. Normally, a company would subscribe to this VIP program for a period of 5 years. And then there's other benefits like faster market access due to improved regulatory changes and the approval processes to change medical devices and put new medical devices into the mainstream. So there are some for a medical company to join this program. There are some restrictions. So there must be an FDA regulated medical device manufacturer and must have a history of compliance. So you can't just be a startup and think that you can now circumvent everything. And you also should not have any significant unresolved FDA violations, which is key. And then there's also the differences in the classes of medical devices that are manufactured, class 1, 2, and class 3, where your class 1 is like a thing that the doctor uses to look down your throat, and class 3 might be a pacemaker. So there's a differentiation between the classes of medical devices that are manufactured. And then also the MDAP is a more collaborative approach, focusing on the continuous improvement rather than a pass or fail. So that's not the ultimate when adopting this program. So FDA inspections are compliance driven with potential penalties, warning letters, or product recalls. But with the MDAP, it's a voluntary and may result in fewer routine FDA inspections if successfully implemented. So when we engage with a medical device company and we do an appraisal, we do feedback to FDA certain of the results.
Okay. Okay, makes sense. And does it possible that a company like technically pass the CMMI, but in practice the process are not very good or like it's a mess? Like for example, you give level 3, but actually it's not level 3. I don't know. It's level 1, but
Okay.
like also everything on the paper, but not workable. You know, like does it like do you see sometimes mismatch between reality and what in the paper? Like, let's say like that.
So you must understand how the CMMI model is structured, and it's a very scientific model. So in CMMI, if we do appraisals, we do not judge a process as being good or bad. The model prescribes what a company needs to do. It doesn't prescribe how a company must implement its processes. So typically, when you do an appraisal, we focus on artifacts and affirmations, and we call this objective evidence. So we would look at any output of processes that the company produces, and we will also do physical interviews with participants and people who actually follow the process and execute the work according to a process. And what we will do is that we will look to see if there is a misalignment between the outputs of a process, which could either be an artifact, something physical, or the affirmations, which is a result of an interview, to see if that output meets the intent and value of a practice area, and also to see if the practice statements are met. So there's a specific structure within the model that prescribes, for instance, if you do planning, there's an intent and value when executing planning. And for all the practices within planning, all those practices have specific statements. And also we will interview the role players separately. So we will never interview a manager with a subordinate, and we will interview roles separately across the entire organization. And what we are looking for is inconsistencies within the feedback that we get. And for each of the practices, and there's more than 200 of them within the model, we will see if those practices are fully met, largely met, partially met, or not yet implemented. And so for each of these practice areas during an appraisal, those practices will be rated as such.
Okay. But you said that to have the review of the process, it takes for you like 5 days. I'm not wrong. So to review.
Yeah, a typical appraisal would be between 5 and 7 days, but it also depends on how many projects, how many employees. There are certain structures. So for a smaller company with like less than 50 people, maybe 2, 3, or 5 projects on the go, a typical appraisal period is about 7 days, where you spend 1 or 2 days doing document reviews, artifact reviews, go through all of those things, and then you start with the interview process. So based on what you've seen as physical outputs, you can now start asking people questions about the work that they perform. And then we will then gather all of that information and start writing the findings for a normal CMMI benchmark appraisals, or in the case of an MDDAP appraisal, we would then start formulating the results.
Okay. Okay, because I think like 5 days, for example, if companies have, I don't know, like few hundred people to interview, even management people, it's like it could be days. But okay, if it makes sense. So you are not alone, usually it's a team, yes, who make a review.
So what we do is we have a system through ISACA, who's the owners of the CMMI model. And we would feed in the whole company's details, the staff that they have, all the projects that they have, all the support functions that they have, and so on. And then the appraisal will be based on a sample basis. So we won't interview each and every person in the company, but we will make sure that we cover all the bases. So for all the practice areas on the model, there will be people that will be executing the work. And we will then, on a sample basis, interview some of these people performing the roles. It might be that there's more than one person, or it could be one person, or it could be persons across multiple projects. So it's not like everybody, but on a sample basis.
Okay. Okay. And does company need to be prepared for it? For example, before you arrive, you say, okay, this is checklist, please prepare for me this information. Or you arrive and like gather everything like in real time. How usually it work?
Okay, so you can define the approach of an appraisal. You can do a discovery mode where
Mm-hmm.
you go into the company and you discover what they have. It takes longer, it's more expensive, and it's risky because they don't know what you are going to ask them. So it's possible that they don't have what is needed. So it becomes risky. So what we normally try and do is to approach an appraisal on a verification mode where we tell the company to prepare the artifacts for us upfront.
Mm-hmm.
So they would then go and source all the information that is needed, and we will then do readiness checks before we actually start the appraisal. So there's a specific date. We call it the start of phase 2 of an appraisal, which means that now you're on site, and this is now the work that you're doing to assess the company or to appraise the company. But the readiness reviews can be done like a week, 2, 3 weeks, maybe a month before the time you can start engaging with a company to make sure, as a lead appraiser, to make sure that they have sufficient evidence. So if you get to a point where you realize this company doesn't have sufficient evidence to continue with the appraisal, that the risk of them failing is quite high, then we would probably stop the appraisal and extend it slightly for 6 months or a year for them to actually get the things in place that's needed. If
Mm-hmm.
we do these readiness reviews and they are about 80 or 90% ready, then we can continue with a more um, with more confidence that we won't find any sort of huge gaps. And then we will start, and then obviously things that are missing, we will then progress into a verification mode, asking them, okay, so you've talked about X, Y, Z. We haven't seen that in the artifacts or the objective evidence. Can you please provide it to us? But that's like a small percentage of the objective evidence is done in that way if you have a verification mode. So there's a lot of preparation that goes in beforehand before we actually start doing an appraisal. And companies would have a comfort factor to before they start an appraisal and not go into this thing blindly and fail and lose a lot of money.
Um, yeah, you mentioned that if something is going, like if you see risk, you stop appraisal and like give company some time. So am I understand right that company have some deadlines or like some period during which they need to like pass the appraisal, or there are not really such deadlines?
No, the deadlines are up to the company when they
Okay.
the appraisal done. Um, they might have deadlines for themselves. We just need to make sure that when we start the appraisal, the phase 2 of it, phase 1 is planning, and that could be 2, 3, 4 months ahead. But the phase 2, when we actually start doing the
Mhm.
actual appraisal, then everything needs to be in place. And we
Uh,
will normally work with the
mhm.
sponsor
What?
and highlight the fact that there's major issues and they should consider canceling or postponing the appraisal. And if there's a comfort factor and we think everything is fine, then we will continue.
Okay. Okay, and does it always offline or you also do it in online? Like how it's work for you?
So all appraisals used to be on site, face to
Okay.
face. COVID happened, and they had to make alternate methods of conducting appraisals, and then the virtual appraisals was introduced, and there's a whole practice about how to perform work virtually. Not just appraisals, but any company performing work virtually can
Mhm.
subscribe to that specific practice area. So most of the benchmark appraisals, you can work with a sponsor.
Mhm.
If the sponsor wants you on site, you can go on site and conduct the appraisal on site, or there's an option for you to do it virtually, and then you do it through Zoom, and make sure that you adhere to all confidentiality agreements and that no information that is
So it's still
discussed.
possible to do it online, but
Yeah, it's
usually
possible.
nobody use it. Like,
Yeah. So
okay.
the MDAP appraisal, the medical device appraisals, that's all on site.
Mm-hmm.
There was a short period of time that they did it virtually, but the medical device companies get much more value out of it if it's on site, because there's an actual premises that you need to inspect. There's a manufacturing plant. And a lot of the things that we look for as objective evidence can be found in these walkthroughs, or assessing what the plant does and how they do things, and how the company actually operates. So all the MDAP appraisals now is mostly done on site.
Okay. Okay, and relative question. So as you go into the different countries, like the very different, like China, if I'm not wrong, Singapore, India, yeah. Correct me
Yeah.
if I'm wrong. So do you see the cultural changes or changes, like, sorry, differences, or do you see like big difference between how the process work in one country and other country? Or mostly is like, or because medical is very regulated, all the process more or less the same? I mean, the level of the process.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting that there's huge cultural differences between all companies. So you might have 2 or 3 or 5 software companies, and they will all be different, implementing the same processes. As I said, the CMMI model prescribes what you need to have in place, and it's up to the organization to decide how are they going to implement that specific area of work. So all companies actually differ, and the people within the company are different, and the roles are sometimes different, doing different types of work. But what we've noticed most that stands out for us is companies' approach towards certification versus continuous improvement. Some companies just want to chase a certification because they want to use it in RFQs or
Mhm.
proposals, where other companies are genuinely interested in improving their processes and their outputs, rather than seeking a certification. And getting to a point where you can get the certification is like the cherry. It's like the ultimate, but it's not the first goal. The second thing that we see in a lot of companies is the level of leadership buy-in. So if leadership doesn't buy into this whole process of continuous improvement, mostly it will fail. So you need to see strong leadership commitment to see better success in the process implementation. Then also roles and responsibility clarities, well-defined ownership and accountability. So it depends from company to company. It will be different how companies actually make people accountable for the work that they do. So that's also quite a major thing. Um, yeah, it's about those 4 things. Sorry, there's one more that I just thought of
Mhm.
now, is aligning your processes and the output of your processes with your business goals. So some companies focus on compliance only, while others align their process outcomes to their strategic objectives. And we see this quite a lot, that you have strategic objectives and goals for the company, and then the processes that are implemented by the people doing the work for the company is not 100% aligned with the objective. So you need to structure your processes in such a way that they are implemented to actually drive the achieving of your business objectives.
Okay, I know that program is quite new, but did you already had chances when you made appraisal, you set some level, and then you came after some time and you see that company improves the level and like they again, okay, improve the level. Or for now it's mostly just give, as you said, just get certification.
No. So companies, as I said, there's 2 things. Companies
Yeah.
either want to chase a certification, or they genuinely want to improve their processes. So the model is structured in such a way that you have a specific area of work, and that specific area of work has got different levels in it.
Yeah.
So the CMMI model has got from a maturity level 1 up to maturity level 5. And people would typically start at the bottom saying, let's just get the basics in, which is a level 1 or a level 2, and then build on that to achieve the practices that are aligned or associated with a level 3, and then even build on that further to implement practices which are aligned with level 4 and 5, which is deemed your high maturity levels, where companies start really managing the organization through quantitative measures and measuring outputs and making data-driven decisions. So that's on the one side. On the MDAP side, we don't give them a rating, although at the end of the day, we would do the same type of appraisal, but give them a type of a heat map saying your practices are either satisfied or partial or deficient. So the satisfied is like on the top 15 or 20%, and your deficient is like the bottom 15%, and your partial is like the biggest part in the middle where there's lots of work still to be done. So the idea is that we identify the gaps and highlight them to the medical companies so that they can use that to further enhance their processes.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for answer. I think I have everything about CMI and MDAP, but I still have the last question, like maybe personal. So you have been appraisals, if I'm not wrong, like more than a couple years, like 5, 6, 7.
Yep. I've been appraisal since about 2010.
Ah, wow. So already 15 years. Okay, good. And it's quite big responsibility because you, even if you said that it's like just a mark, it just show your level, still like company feel or happy or think, okay, I don't like the result. So what do you think is the most important skill that needed to do the job good?
So what makes you a good lead appraiser or even a team member is good analytical thinking. That's crucial. And even more is your interpersonal communication with the client. We are not auditors. We don't come there and do an audit. We do an appraisal, which is quite different. So we want to work with the company to identify their weaknesses and give them recommendations and improvement opportunities to go and fix that. Because that's why we do appraisals, is to identify where is things not working. I think the other thing is also balancing objectivity with the diplomacy. I think that's a key aspect of a trait for a good lead appraiser. And as I said, so we are there to identify weaknesses while ensuring that the companies remain motivated to actually improve the gaps that are identified.
Okay, yeah, very wise answer.
We are also in collaboration with my partner company, Demix. Also currently working on some tools that would assist companies with the how part. As I said, the CMMI talks about the what needs to be in place, and we are currently also working on a model where you can see the what and how cross mapping with similar models to CMMI, not just CMMI. So, and also integrating AI, which is also another big area that we can't ignore.
Yeah, actually, I forgot to ask about AI. But anyway, so am I understand right that you want to like optimize create a product which will automatically do your work or like part of the work?
Yeah, I think AI is transforming how companies operate. So
Yeah,
I think in the
definitely.
future, AI would be able to use transforming the process improvement by automating process monitoring or predictive analysis for good quality control, or even AI-driven risk assessments.
Yeah,
So I think there's a lot of scope into the future to apply AI in our space, but I don't think it will ever 100% replace the human judgment and how an appraisal is conducted. You still need that human interaction and work with your client.
agree,
And what I'm
agree.
also saying there is that there's two parts to it. The one is we do appraisals to evaluate the outcomes of
Mm-hmm.
what a company has implemented or what they have achieved. And the other one is assisting companies with this in this journey to get there.
Yeah. On which stage are you? Like any optimization is always like very high theme, so everybody like want to try it.
Yeah,
So
so no,
yeah,
no,
where you know,
I have not applied much AI to the current
but
appraisals.
still.
I
Mhm.
think it's going to happen in the future.
Okay. Okay, then we will be in touch. So when you will be ready, definitely we'll need to make review of the product.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
thank you for yeah.
even without AI, we are willing to help consult with companies to get them on the right track in
Yeah,
achieving goods.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Because AI still need like a lot of training. And
Yeah.
like it's time, it's statistic, and it's not always show the best result. As you said, it's still not replace the human. So
Yes.
agree,
Okay.
agree with you.
All right. That was great chatting to you.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing it with me.